George Washington is remembered as the father of a nation, the commander who stood against the most powerful empire on earth, the first president of the United States, the man who refused a crown when absolute power seemed within reach. His image has been carved into mountains, printed on currency, and immortalized in textbooks as the embodiment of honor and restraint. But history often polishes its heroes. Behind the carefully preserved legacy stands a far more complicated figure, a man shaped by ambition, pride, fear, and political calculation. Washington was not simply a reluctant patriot carried by destiny. He was a wealthy Virginia planter, deeply invested in land, status, and influence. He sought military distinction long before independence was declared, and he understood the power of reputation. The revolution did not begin with pure idealism. It was entangled with economic interests, territorial disputes, and elite colonial anxieties. Washington stood at the center of it all. To understand his greatness, we must also confront his contradictions, because the story of George Washington is not only about liberty, it is also about power, control, and the moral compromises hidden beneath the birth of a nation. While speaking of liberty and natural rights, George Washington owned human beings. At Mount Vernon, his Virginia estate, more than 100 enslaved men, women, and children labored under his authority. They cultivated tobacco and wheat, maintained the property, and generated the wealth that sustained his social standing. Washington tracked their productivity. He recorded expenses. He pursued those who attempted escape. Freedom was the language of the Revolution, but not its universal practice. Even as northern states began gradual abolition, Washington navigated legal loopholes to maintain control over enslaved individuals connected to his household. The system was complex, but its foundation was clear. Human lives were treated as property. Some historians argue that he grew uneasy with slavery later in life. That may be true, but discomfort did not translate to immediate emancipation. The institution that contradicted the ideals of the Revolution remained central to his estate for decades. The question lingers: how does a man fight tyranny while participating in bondage? Mount Vernon was not just a home, it was a plantation sustained by forced labor, a reality often softened in patriotic memory. War shapes reputations, but it also exposes harsh truths. As commander of the Continental Army, Washington faced chaos, unpaid soldiers, desertions, espionage, and collapsing morale. Survival demanded discipline, and discipline required severity. He approved public executions of deserters to send a message. He relied on intelligence networks that operated in secrecy and deception. Prisoners on both sides endured brutal conditions, disease, and neglect. Washington understood that the revolution could fail at any moment. To prevent collapse, he enforced order with an iron resolve. The image of the calm general crossing the Delaware hides the relentless pressure he carried. Behind strategic brilliance lay constant fear of mutiny and defeat. Some of his decisions were pragmatic, others were unforgiving. Victory required sacrifice, but not all sacrifices were voluntary. Leadership in war is rarely gentle, and while Washington's determination secured independence, it also revealed a side of him that valued stability over mercy. The myth celebrates courage. The fuller story acknowledges calculation, severity, and the grim cost of building a nation through conflict. After independence, many believed Washington could become king. Some officers even suggested it. He declined, reinforcing his image as a man immune to tyranny. Yet refusing a crown did not mean rejecting power. As the first president, Washington helped define executive authority in a fragile republic. His decisions shaped the balance between liberty and federal control. And when that balance was challenged, he responded decisively. In 1794, during the Whiskey Rebellion, farmers protested federal taxes they considered unjust. Washington did not merely negotiate, he mobilized thousands of militia troops and personally rode part of the way to confront the uprising. The message was unmistakable. The new government would enforce its laws. To supporters, it preserved order. To critics, it demonstrated how quickly revolutionary ideals could harden into centralized authority. The same leader who resisted monarchy also proved willing to project military force against his own citizens. The early republic survived, but it survived through strength, not softness, and Washington stood firmly at the center of that display of power. Near the end of his life, Washington's views on slavery appeared to shift. In his will, he ordered that the enslaved people he legally owned be freed after his wife's death, a rare decision among major founding fathers. It was a significant gesture, but it came only after his own lifetime of benefit from their labor. He did not lead a public abolition movement. He did not free them during his presidency. His moral reconsideration remained largely private. So how should history judge him? Washington was neither a simple villain nor a flawless hero. He was a man of the 18th century, ambitious, disciplined, pragmatic, operating within a system he did not create but unquestionably sustained. His leadership helped secure independence and establish a republic that would endure. Yet that republic was born with deep inequalities embedded in its foundation. The statues show strength and dignity, the documents show vision, but the fuller story reveals tension between freedom and ownership, restraint and force, idealism and reality. The dark side of George Washington is not a tale of secret evil. It is a story of contradiction, and perhaps that makes it more unsettling than myth ever could.